Welcome to Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes. This is a Conquest video and we're working on Sector 3 of SM-33's Conquest number 19. We're looking at the feats, how efficient we were, what kind of progress we made, which squads that we were utilizing, and what data disks we used, and the choices we were making throughout the sector, and then we will tackle the boss nodes. Global feats, we have knocked off a few of these now, and we're seeing the impact of that incremental progress. We're not specifically targeting these feats, but as they overlap with other sector feats, we are making progress. We've knocked off damage over time in Sector 3. We've made progress on light side unlined force users, and stagger is completed as well, along with the challenge path, but that's just whatever. We also see that we are halfway done with critical damage down, and Bad Batch units is also almost completed. In Sector 3, we were able to complete 2 out of 4 feats. The big issue here being stamina. That is holding me back on the win 15 battles with Darth Vader. He was depleted in the previous sector, and we also have win 14 battles with no attackers. Now this one I could have made more progress on, but I was trying to use my light side unlined force users on it, but gain defense up and 400 stacks of target practice. That happened super early into the sector. Throughout Sector 3, we were primarily leaning on 3 squads. For target practice, that is the new Bad Batch. And I purposely did not finish a number of these characters in terms of their promotions. I did take Wrecker from 3 to 5. I tried him at 3 stars. That wasn't enough. He needs to absorb too many hits. He's out in the open. But I wanted to show for the free-to-play players that Gear 11 is enough on these characters, and try to get at least 5 stars, which is relatively cheap. And you should do that anyway for the upcoming raid, because they are going to be a team, and 5 stars is going to be enough to help out your guild and help out yourself. And with this squad, I was able to complete the feat within 5 battles. I completed it by the time I attacked the middle boss. You'll see the result. But if you don't have the Bad Batch developed to this level, just work on Fugitive Omega. Because with Fugitive Omega and her leadership ability, you can use any Bad Batch characters, and as long as they're hitting the same target, all Bad Batch allies will get stacks of target practice. Which means all of these weaker characters, if you haven't developed them, you can bring in some of the OG Bad Batch, and you are still going to be able to accomplish this target practice feat. But it's also very easy, and you don't have to win the battle. So you can afford to lose characters, lose a node. Just don't forfeit the attempt, and you'll make sure that you can knock this off quick. This squad is not going to prevent you from red crating. For defense up, I split that between 2 other squads, and those 2 other squads are going to tackle the other feats within the sector. The first one we're going to talk about is the Sith, because this is going to be available to everybody. I ended up using Vader lead, not Palp lead, as I had in the preliminary overview, because Palpatine is completely depleted on stamina, so he wasn't an option. And I went with Vader lead because of our data disks. We had Caustic Emissions, we have Amplify Agony, so that was going to allow Vader lead to be much more threatening. Bastila Fallen here is going to tackle 2 global feats with crit damage down and stagger. She is the reason we are halfway done with that feat. And then between Savage Oppress and Sith Empire Trooper, we have characters helping out with defense up. These characters, though, aren't going to make a ton of progress because of how the defense up is triggered. For Savage, he has to be attacked, and Sith Empire Trooper does it on his unique ability. And for him, it's whenever he uses his special. So we're not going to see a lot of defense up on this squad. Malik is here because he was very useful in shutting down a number of the squads we were going up against, especially powerful squads with a lot of assists or attacks out of turn. Malik was shutting that down and made it a lot more successful, or the squad in general to be a lot more successful. And using it, we were able to almost complete the Vader feat, but Vader is pretty depleted on his stamina right now. Like, we can select it, I'll show it to you. Like, I got him down to 5%. You can see how heavily this squad was used throughout the sector. Now this other squad here with the light side unlined force users, this is going to be great for defense up. It's going to be one of your best options for defense up, and it's going to help with the global feat. But unfortunately, this squad will not be available to all players because it requires GL Ahsoka Tano. And that's because all the other light side unlined force users, they are all attacked attackers. We only have 5 characters to choose from. One of them has to be the GL. I went with Sirjunda lead because she's adding survivability, and Sirjunda, CONQUEST, they are the characters who have defense up. Sirjunda offers an AoE defense up with force barrier, and CONQUEST has it on his unique ability related to the amount of stacks, but if he has 20 stacks, then all unlined force users allies will gain defense up. So we can make a bunch of progress between those 2 characters, and I was done with that feat fairly early. And this squad was leaned on pretty heavily, and you can see here how depleted they got. The big issue here is one Ahsoka was depleted from the Spectre feats, and then there's no real, because there's no attackers on this squad, we weren't really doing any damage. So as we were getting lower in stamina, they were just becoming less and less effective and risking timeouts pretty frequently. If this unaligned force user squad is unavailable to you though, this Jedi squad here will allow you to tackle defense up very quickly in just a couple nodes, but more importantly, it's going to allow you to tackle the no attacker requirements, and as you get lower in stamina, you have so many options to choose from to swap out some of these characters for other Jedi with more stamina who will be able to contribute a little bit more. But here we have a defense up trigger on JML's leadership ability, where when they drop below 100% health, they self-grant defense up. We have defense up on both the basic and the take charge AoE ability. Devoted Protector gives an AoE defense up, and we have Force Healer also giving defense up. So that's going to take care of it in a node or 2. So while a great squad for the sector, it's just not going to be able to help out with a global feat simultaneously. Sector 3 Datadisks, I did make some minor changes, the biggest one being caustic emissions. I swapped that in, partly because we were leaning on Vader so much, but also because we're utilizing Amplify Agony, and to make space, I took out opportunistic support. But more importantly, we've seen a number of Datadisks at this point, so we have a more familiarity on what the set for Conquest 19 is going to have available to us. So I'm starting to develop some theories of what I want to collect. I want thermal exhaust to build out those old sets that we used to have of caustic emissions, amplify agony, and thermal exhaust. I also passed on a stacking fervor before, and I want that back because stacking fervor paired with this assertive command is going to be an effective combo. I haven't seen any blindside, which would be my preference, but any amount of offense, stacking, mechanics I'm going to want to have. Also, I think I swapped in stacking offense. I probably took out vitality or power or something to make room for it. Oh no, I took out my second amplify agony to make room for stacking offense because I didn't have stacking fervor. And that's related to those unlined force users who just didn't have enough offense on their own without an attacker. At the first fork, we have some options here: ruthless offense, critical buffs, painful trials. Painful trials is a blue, but it's not really one that I like because for a 3 dot, I don't really think it's worth what it is, and it takes up a lot of space. And down below, no help, we have Amplify Agony, opportunistic support. In this case, I grabbed the Painful Trials just because maybe we look at some sort of turn meter set later on, but it's probably not going to get utilized this conquest. At the crossroads, we had some pretty weak options. Defense buff, Master's Technique here, a green power and a green helping hands in the center, and at the bottom, more of what we've been seeing this entire season: hone skills, offensive buffs, and critical buffs. In this case, I didn't really care about any of them, so I made my choices based solely on the surrounding nodes of what was going to help with different feats. I think I saw like a Phoenix squad and like an Ewok squad, so I went for those. I ended up grabbing the helping hands in the middle. At the second fork of vitality, a stacking offense, critical buffs, and opportunistic support down below, I grabbed the stacking offense. It was just best available. At the final boss node, we had a pretty nice one with ruthless offense. That one I can see doing something with. We get these stacking offense mechanics. We can make a set out of that. Combine this with the stacking offense and maybe a stacking fervor if you can find it, and then you have a nice little offense that you really want to just build on strengths with these discs. There's a way to get a pretty offensive heavy disk combo. And at the start of Sector 4, there's this protection shield. When you get critically hit, you recover protection. I went with that one. And this is because I want to add some resiliency to the squad, because I really missed having entrenched and fortified. You can feel the difference. So anything that is going to add that survivability is going to be useful. But I haven't put it on because I don't have the space for it. We'll probably throughout Sector 4 see what's available and start building up better combos through Sector 4 and Sector 5. Sector 3 middle bosses, we have win with Omega Fugitive surviving. There's a couple ways to tackle that. And we have Cloned Commander defeating an enemy with Apple. Now, the Apple feat we are going to be waiting until next week when Scorch is available. We know he's coming. We also know the Tarkin rework is coming. And once Scorch is in the game, we'll be able to complete the set of Darkside clones, and under Lord Vader, we will have Coruscant Commander under Apple where he can't die until Lord Vader does, which is going to make that feat so much easier. And even if you don't have Lord Vader, you can use Tarkin, and under Tarkin, there's a huge stat boost. It's just going to make him more offensively dangerous and more survivable. For Fugitive surviving, I did use the new Bad Batch squad. You can see they were a little depleted on the stamina because we had been using them throughout Sector 3, but we didn't actually deplete them too much by the time we needed to complete that target practice feat. It looks like we only used them 2 times, technically 3 times maybe, because they had recovered some stamina by that point. But if you don't have all these characters available to you, you can just use Omega Fugitive with the old school Bad Batch squad, or you can do the trick we talked about yesterday of just hiding Fugitive under JML, where JML with Watt forcing the taunt with the protection tech will keep Omega alive, protected by the taunt. But in my case, this level of an Omega Fugitive squad was more than adequate. You do want some turn meter mechanics, and actually you're going to see in the footage here a little bit of reason to have that ignore taunt data disk that I keep ignoring. Maybe I will grab that. Because what you want to happen is to keep attacking the character who was last attacked. And what I try to do here with Batcher, because you want Batcher Fast to apply marked. I'm throwing it over on Resistance Hero Finn because he's the biggest threat. I want to take him out. But now the marked is already gone and I can't target who I want. Because I want Hunter Mercenary to go right after Batcher to be able to hit that marked and take out a character that I want, which did not exactly happen. You see the idea, but it didn't occur. But what's nice about using this squad, especially when you have these weaker characters, is the mechanics with Captive and Rescue. You can try and get through this. Now, we lost Wrecker, but we're not going to lose Batcher. I used the basic because he was dead anyway. I wanted to save that big attack. This looks like it's available, so I'm going to use the basic ability, which I think will go through the Foresight. And I will target JTR to maintain the chain. Now we can use this big hit. And so we lost Wrecker, but we were able to avoid losing Batcher, and we were able to accomplish the target practice feat while also accomplishing the middle boss feat. The final boss nodes, we have Enoch in the squad and win without using any support units. Now, Enoch in the squad, that actually changed from my preliminary review of the feats. Because in the preliminary review, I didn't know who the boss was going to be, and Captain Enoch lead is very bad up against CLS because they can just knock out Enoch, and there's a lot of crits, which just completely negates the decay mechanics. So your better option is going to be DTMG. So, and hopefully you have him. Otherwise, maybe this is something that you're going to have to use a different Empire squad, try and protect him with tanks. You could also try this JML squad where JML protects Enoch in this case instead of like Omega Fugitive or some of your other options. This is always good for just a win with somebody in the squad. But in my case, Emperor Zurg makes for an easy win of this feat. We lose a character right off the bat. We have to target CLS. And so we go after him, knock him out, and I'm going to take out Chewbacca. So we can get rid of Guard, and now the biggest threat to me is going to be either Han or Chewpio, and it doesn't really matter. We've revived Moff Gideon so that we can 3-star, and really if anybody would have died, we would have been able to revive them. And it's a really easy node for the right squad. And for no support characters, I wanted to stack feats. I wanted to keep working on the Vader sector feat. You can see at this point though, my Vader was way too weak in order to carry it himself, so I paired him with Sith Eternal Emperor and some attackers. Now, unfortunately, we couldn't use Bastila of Fallen to work on crit damage or the stagger, the global feats, but I was able to throw in these tanks to add some survivability and to protect Vader. Revan also for that AoE fear. And this also works out great, but it does require a GL. There's plenty of other options though. If you don't have any support characters, you can do some nice stuff with Jabba if you have Jabba. Otherwise, JML and a Jedi squad is going to do great. That JML squad that we went over for the no attacker characters, you can swap out any support characters. It was primarily the tanks that I had in that squad anyway. You could do some combo of a JML squad and easily get through this sector, this boss feat. But this will allow you to tackle at least 2 feats in one. The Sector 4 and 5 videos will be coming out shortly, but if you're ahead of me, up in the corner, our CONQUEST overview. Those are my preliminary thoughts on these feats based prior to the start, and you saw throughout this sector that sometimes how I approach them will change with the on-field conditions. Down below, the Datacron video as you start farming for Datacron resources. That video summarizes all of my thoughts on those level 9 abilities and actually some of the level 3 and level 6 abilities. We also got today the Tarkin rework and Scorch's kit, so look out for those videos in the coming days. Thank you for watching. Be excellent to each other, everybody. This is Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes.